The afternoon started with a bunch of us sitting around my friend's apartment with me, my friend's younger brother and two of his friends trying to get on for acid. We just all sat around, smoking cones, playing guitar, listening to music, getting in a good positive tripping mood. We all mixed our pot with tobacco. D+0. After several hours with no luck, I tried a contact of mine who got me in touch with someone who had mushrooms. What we got was 4 mushroom capsules which each contain approximately 0.4 grams of pure psilocybin, the equivalent of 2 shrooms or 1.5 to 2 grams of shrooms. Nothing big, but I had only had shrooms once before and no one else had tried them. We all took our shroom cap each. I chose to open my capsule, empty it on my tongue and drown it down with a drink of water. This method, since then, has proven to be most effective for a quick onset. After about 30 to 40 minutes we all were feeling groovy, and after an hour we all were at our peak. D+1 hour. We all decided to go down to the local mall so some of the dudes could get some food. By now more people had arrived, all staying sober, so we had a nice little gang going down to the mall. It was dark as we left the apartment, but I remember looking out onto the road and seeing the car being ultra reflective of street lights, other cars and the moon. They all reflected so brightly off of each car. It seemed so obvious that these cars were not meant to be here, and they were trying to blend in as best as they could to seem bright and vibrant. Like they wanted to make the night a better place, but really, they were all just dead pieces of trash putting on a show. When we got the mall, 10 minutes walk, everyone in the mall, by everyone I mean about 20 people, it was 9ish at night, seemed really happy and had a story to tell. That I could approach any one of them and they could so easily explain why they had a smile on the face. They were all glowing and so positive, and it made the walk through the mall incredibly peaceful, alongside walking with my fellow men talking shit, cracking jokes. We arrived at an Indian restaurant where a few of the guys ordered some noms, but I was saving myself for what was waiting back at the apartment for me, some yellow DMT crystals with my name on them. While we were at the Indian restaurant, I remember thinking how much I love Indian food and how I could go to India any day and try out their culture. Never before had I been so interested in India, and all I was doing was looking at a photo of some place from India on the wall. Also in the restaurant, the colors on the wall were flowing really smoothly like a river of lava in 3D mode. It put an incredibly positive boost to the already positive vibe I had. After the boys ate, we left, headed to the apartment. D+2 hours and 30 minutes. When we got back to the apartment, the positive vibes kept rolling. We then busted out the record player, and with our extensive collection of record between some of us, we had a large variety to choose from, but of course I put on Dark Side of the Moon straight up. I had listened to it on an incredibly heavy LSD trip a few months beforehand and wanted to hear it again while tripping. Listening to music is my favorite thing to do while stripping. You can get so lost. I remember listening to the sax solo in Pink Floyd's Money and letting it melt my hair off my head with its smooth, crisp sound. After listening to the record from start to end, I knew it was time to prepare myself for what I was about to do. D+3 hours and 30 minutes. I decided at the time that the best way to prepare for my DMT trip was to choose a nice record, listen to one side, mentally prepping myself, having a cone or two. Then flip the record and begin my trip. I chose the Flaming Lips Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots, not knowing at the time how important this selection was going to become. I was drawn to it at the time because I have a clear red wax copy of the album and it was glowing red as though it was saying choose me. I put it on and had a few bongs and remember sitting on the lounge tripping really hard to Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots Part 1 and 2, and during Part 2 of the song I had an incredibly vivid closed-eye hallucination of 2 colored patterns, one being Yoshimi and the other being the Pink Robots, and throughout the song they had a beyond epic battle and it was so incredibly and beautiful. I had never seen such beauty in music. After the first side of the record finished, I went and took a shit, did a piss, allowing my body to be clean and respected, for I wanted to be clean for what was about to happen. I had a preparation cone beforehand and was certain it was time to do it. D+4 hours. I was choosing to smoke the DMT through my bong. I filled the cone piece about 1/3 of the way with pot mixed with tobacco. I then used some folded paper to scoop out a nice sized hit of the yellow crystals. I had experience with DMT, having 2 previous breakthrough experiences while under the influence of heavy LSD beforehand, so 1% of me knew what I was doing. But I was ready to dive into the unknown. I put a little more DMT on this hit than my previous hits due to I did not know if the mushrooms would be powerful enough for me to break through off a smoke dose. I sat the bong in the kitchen, all locked and loaded, put on side 2 of the record and just sat there, looking at the bong, mainly the cone piece with the beautiful crystals sitting in it, reflecting the lights from around the room. including this cool green laser one of the guys had brought with him. I don't know how long I looked at the DMT for, but I think it was a few songs. But then, it was time. D plus 4 hours and 15 minutes. I used a lighter to just ever so slightly burn the crystals as I breathed in very weakly, trying to only burn the DMT crystals as slowly as possible, letting the bong chamber fill, 500 milliliter chamber. After about 10 to 15 seconds of slowly burning the DMT to black char, I breathed in harder and pulled the cone over a few more seconds and held my breath for around 1 minute. I'm a swimmer/diver, I train holding my breath, and then exhaled. Straight away as I was exhaling I felt the pressure and gravity collapse around me. I could feel it in my ears. Almost hear it. This was the feeling I was greeted with before my 2 previous breakthrough experiences, and straight away my first realization hit me. This is it. Holy shit, it's going to happen. Straight away I knew I was going to break through. I was looking out of the window in the kitchen. I exhaled in and remember the blinds shifting up and down, back and forth, letting in vibrant floral light with every movement. Suddenly I realized I needed to sit down. I turned around and everything was moving at 1,000,000 miles per hour. It seemed like a tornado had appeared in the apartment, and the only thing I could see clearly and focus on was a chair on the other side of the room. As I staggered towards it, wondering if I would collapse before I got there or not, I completely forgot how to breathe. I panicked. This had happened one of the previous times and I forgot how I solved it last time. There were too many things I had to do before I could break through. I had to sit down, breath, stop this tornado. After what felt like forever I finally made it to the chair and sat down. As soon as I did this I breathed, the tornado stopped and I was calm. Everything was positive again. I looked around for not even a fraction of a second to find everyone looking at me, where then, out of nowhere some great force grabbed me and threw me onto the floor. I can't remember what song was playing, I couldn't hear it. I was been thrown on the floor. I was arching my back, gripping my skull as hard as I could. It felt like something was trying to rip the limbs off my body. I'm still not sure to this day if I enjoyed this part of my trip or not. It wasn't painful or scared me negatively, but it wasn't blissful and positive. It just happened. But then I realized it was a test to see if I was ready for what was about to happen. I opened my eyes and remember seeing fluoro colors seeping in under the doors. Intense kaleidoscoping patterns on the roof that was ever changing, whilst still being thrown around, with my body appearing to be in a spasm. But I just thought of the previous half hour of preparing myself for the trip, and I remembered the crazy hallucination of Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots Part 2 and thought of the song. I then adjusted my spasms and movements to be in time with the song, and this then made it a positive experience, as though I was dancing as hard I could possibly dance. I heard someone say, should we call an ambulance, but then someone else said no, he's alright, he's just breaking through. And then when my experience really began, the song popped out of my head. I didn't need it anymore. It was just the noise of the universe and its entirety filling my ears as my body was ripped apart by time and space. Each of my limbs felt as though they flew off in a different direction and everything went black. Then it started. The best way to describe this part of my trip was that I was flying through the universe and I saw a white line ahead of me, with infinite data pouring out of it. In a spiraling pattern, the data was flying past me at the speed of light. So much, constantly changing. But I could slow down and zoom in on the detail on the data and could see colors, shapes, infinite glory. One image which has really stuck with me from this part of the trip was a part of the data I zoomed in on, and it made out the faces which can be best described as stained glass window version of cartoon, side of pictures of the king, queen, and jack on a deck of cards. But the lines which made up these patterns and faces were ever swirling while staying dead straight, forever moving while been perfectly still, making up these images. I was crying my eyes out of how beautiful it was. While all of this was going on, the song Do You Realize by the Flaming Lips was playing, and I can remember as though I was seeing a live-action music video where, although it was not in time to the music, it suited to it too perfectly and added a bonus level of bliss to the trip. As I raced towards the white light in the distance, although I was getting closer, it was as though I was chasing it. It was also getting further away, but I was faster, I was catching up. As I got close it got brighter and the data flowing out was more pure data than anything I could make out to be from Earth. But then, I reached the white light. I'm not sure what happened, but I describe it as though I caught up to the end of the ever-growing universe and pierced through to the other side. I had reached the other side of the end of the universe. But nothing happened, until the strangest thing ever happened. The song Do You Realize started playing again, and the entire trip started again. I remember freaking out and thinking, what the fuck is going on? And everything started to shake. I quickly switched back to realizing I had seen this all before, and I was predicting what the data was going to be, and was correct. It was mind-blowing. I was flying through the universe again, engulfed by bliss once again, crying. But then the lyrics "Do you realize" were sung in the song, and I started spiraling myself through the spiraling data. And I started having realization after realization. All of them more intense and important than the last. Non-stop flooding my thoughts while I was flying through the universe. Up to where I again reached the white light and broke through to the other side of the end of the universe. This time it did not start again. I was in a pace that resembles the inside of a lava lamp. Colors that I had never seen before flowing past me in perfect synchronization, consistently changing. The patterns on the walls in front of me, they weren't walls, they were just there, but they resembled walls kind of, were so complex and profound and perfect. It gave off the feeling of pure mathematics in motion. It was similar to the pattern I saw on the roof of the apartment before breaking through, but a lot cleaner, crisper, flawless, and right there, in front of me, just been there. This then started up the realization again, but the realization would hit me in sync with the gyrating patterns in front of me. It started to become too much to handle. It wasn't stopping. The realizations were becoming too intense. I did not know how to stop it. Then these beings with strange faces appeared out of the colors moving and approached me. They did not seem like aliens or entities. I had one previous encounter with entities, but it tried to communicate with me, but the realizations I were having were too profound and intense to be able to hear what the being was saying. So it left. I was just standing there, amazed at this reality I was in, looking around and starting to concentrate on what was in front of me in detail, studying the patterns, and as I did the realization stopped. And I had a clear head. I remember thinking that what I was seeing gave me the same feeling I get when I take a big, deep cold breath of air and exhale and am satisfied. It was that feeling. So I then proceeded to move forward. I did not walk, or fly, or shuffle or anything. I just moved forward. Not fast like when I was flying through the universe, just at a pace similar to walking speed. Then I suddenly got overwhelmed with a positive feeling that I was not alone. Something else was present in this reality. I did not get this same feeling from the thing I encountered earlier. I then saw some of the colors that were moving, shifting, and creatures appeared out of them, advancing towards me. They had bodies, but unlike humans or any science fiction alien drawing I had seen before. Although they did not have legs and feet, they gave off the motion as they moved forward. They looked like a girl wearing really high heels for the first time and struggling to walk. Once they had approached me. I'm not sure how many there were, not a lot, but there was one main one who stood out, moved in front of everyone, and was the one who approached me. I could see what would be its face. Nothing like I had ever seen before. The only part of it I can even begin to try and describe could be what might have been its mouth. It reminded me of someone who had their lips removed and their mouth was just open, exposing their gums and teeth, but these creatures had things different to teeth, but seemed to have gums. Conversation was short and sweet. The main being told me that this place will always be here. And anyone is always welcome, under strict guidelines though. He told me in order to return I have to be free of negativity, be of kind heart consistently, and help others more than I must help myself. To share my time on earth with others and have as much of a positive impact on others. The more positive I am, the greater the alternative reality experience is. That I have to look after my body and treat it as a vessel for my time on earth, eating organically and eliminating shit from my diet. I remember thinking to myself, oh damn, I so don't want to be a vegan or something, but as I was thinking this, the being told me eating of livestock is alright, as long as the final product is as pure as possible and non-processed. Then the creature left, leaving me to process what had just happened. And my final realization of my trip hit me. All of the realizations I had beforehand were every realization I have had from birth, up until I smoked the hit of DMT. Which led me to understand how much positive I have done with my life, so far, at the time I was 20, and how much more I could do. It was beautiful. The best way for my trip to end. I then felt myself kind of pop and I opened my eyes and was back in the living room. I freaked out for a second because the time it felt like I had gone had been weeks, months. An incredibly long time, much longer than my other breakthrough experiences. I remember thinking, oh shit, work's going to kill me, they won't have any idea where I've been. Before I could ask how long I was gone, something crazy happened. One of the other guys who had shrooms was walking out of the kitchen when I opened my eyes and I saw the all-seeing eye embedded on his forehead. I instantly knew he had just had a hit of DMT. He sat down with his eyes open, his pupils filling his entire eye. Blackness. Then he cocked his head back and slammed his hand onto his nose, slowly sliding his hand up his face. As soon as he touched the all-seeing eye/mind's eye, whatever you wanna call it, it got really red and scattered and took over his entire head. He was pressing extremely hard on his forehead where the eye originally was, and he then again cocked his head back, opened his mouth, and a big chunk of vomit flew out of his mouth, got a good second of hang time and fell down and landed in his lap as a big ball of yuck. Then the scattered, red eye that was taking over his head disappeared, as well as him, as he faded in with the furniture. He was no longer part of this living reality. He was gone. I then looked at my friend, who I asked how long was I gone, to get told, well, you were sitting on the chair for about 90 seconds, looking as though you were incredibly drunk and had no center of balance, slowly swaying, moving your mouth as though you were saying wow. After 90-ish seconds of that, you buried your head in your arm and leaned on the table for about 60 seconds, then you opened our eyes just after so-and-so took his head. My brain scattered. I didn't believe him at first. It blew my mind. Time no longer existed. What the fuck had just happened? Whatever did just happen, I spent the next half an hour non-stop thinking about it, while surrounded by strange swirling colors/patterns, while my brain was adjusting back to baseline from the reality it had just been in. D+4 hours and 45 minutes. The effects of DMT have fully worn off and I'm back to the shroom mind frame, but still far too fascinated by what just happened to think and talk about anything else. By this time, everyone had left/gone to sleep but me, except the other guy who had DMT and one of the others on shrooms. The other, who was just shrooming, asked for a hit, who then had one and sat on the lounge tripping his balls out, while myself and the other, who had just had some, smoked some cones, and talked about our trips and lessons we learned and about life. The whole night was one of the nights I'll never forget for the rest of my life. I learned so much in such a short period of time. Since that trip I have had a mushroom capsule and enough DMT for one last ride sitting on my shelf, waiting to be explored. But I still have not fully processed the last trip, but when I am ready, I will have another brilliant trip report.